Rufus's life is a little rough right now.
So is Malcolm's.
What's in store? You've got you've got the lifeboat, you've got Gia and her visions.
Yes.
Where are we going?
All of these are true things.
All of these are true things, but
yes.
how is there going to be a breaking point at which he can't handle all of them?
I think this is the season that Rufus and Gia get tested. Their relationship gets tested. I think these guys can't rely on the creature comforts that they had from last year. You know, the new year, I think we've really changed a couple things, which is that now we have sleeper agents. Now we are just sort of in the bunker now, and Gia's having these visions, and I think we're really sort of, where last year was about keeping time exactly the same, this year is about how time is changing and how we're kind of in this essentially an alternate timeline this season and how that gets affected. This is the first time where the actual time tune's memories get affected, and I think that's going to wind up coming into play in ways that'll be really interesting.
If Rufus had one piece of advice for his friend Wyatt, considering what's coming, what would you tell him?
I think you just tell him, be honest, and just, tell the people. I think if there's anything Rufus learned last season, it's to tell the people that he loves them. And I think he pretty much has that same advice for Wyatt, when near the finale last year, he basically told Gia, I wish I had been telling you I love you, and when she almost ended, he was able to tell her that he did. And so I think that's kind of just his advice and mantra for Wyatt in general right now. Just like, stop being such a hard ass and just tell him you love him.
Do you have an absolute favorite period of time that you have done on the show?
It's weird. This whole thing is a blur. So it's like I didn't even realize the time periods I really liked until the end of the last season. So I can't tell you what's happening. Plus, everything's a twist and a turn and a surprise here, so it's like hard to talk about it without like letting everything out of the bag. But I love the '80s last year, and I love the Western that we visited. And this one is going to have some interesting times. Hollywoodland, I think, which is the upcoming episode, is probably our most straightforward, fun, comedic episode where we really sort of let loose. And there's, I think, Abby gets some of the wishes that she's probably said in interviews from last year, and I get to explore, really fun personalities and really explore a lot more the fun side of the time team. I think that one was really a really fun one for the group.
I feel like Rufus actually gets to star more in Hollywoodland than he has before. Yeah. What did you love most about your role in Hollywoodland?
Hollywoodland was it was difficult as a character only because he doesn't particularly love to play front and center. So it was really weird to try and portray someone who's an introvert being extremely extroverted, which was fun and sort of challenging as an actor, and also giving a nod to Langston Hughes and learning a little bit about him was like super cool. And I always love that. I always love being able to give the new generation these heroes, particularly heroes of color, and learning about them. And so that was really a fun thing that happened in that event.
When are Rufus and Gia going to get some time alone? Is it smooth sailing for them?
It is not smooth sailing for them. I think, it's cool because you see them as a couple, and I love seeing Rufus and Gia as a couple. I don't think you see characters like them portrayed particularly often and in love and fucking. So like that's kind of cool. But I think they're definitely going to be tested, and it's going to be, I think their relationship takes front and center in ways that you really don't expect. Yeah.
You're like, what can I not?
It's hard because they write twists at the end of every episode, and so like it's hard to, I'm like until the commercials release, I'm like, okay, so that part.
What time in history would you like to go to and maybe mess with history a little bit? If you had your choice.
If I had my choice, it might be the 80s, man. I kind of want to be there for the sort of, essential birth of hip-hop and the cool colors and the breakdancing and the really fun, hey, ha, hoobada-pop-pop. Like, I really want to be a part of that. I just really want to beatbox for, Cool Herc or something like that.
Going off that, is there, an icon that you, look up to or want to kind of touch base the show with, the time with?
You know, we had a really fun time with Robert Johnson, which was very cool, and to see sort of the birth of rock and blues and that sort of thing. That was a really, really fun episode because we also explored a couple other musicians who get highlighted a little bit from that one. So like that was really cool. Like just seeing like bare bones blues music and rock music and that sort of thing is like really amazing. Because that's probably most likely who I'd want to visit when I went into the past. It's just really like really cool, awesome musicians and icons like Robert Johnson and these sort of figures. Like that's pretty cool.
The fans of this show are rabid and very passionate. What has been the craziest fan experience you've had?
This is the first year, I feel like Matt's been through this, but this is the first year where there's like fans at airports sort of a thing. So that's weird. Or they're like, hey Rufus, here's a picture of you. So like that's surprising, I'm not used to that. That's where I'm kind of like Rufus. I'm a little more of an introvert. Like I need very controlled environments for my fan interaction. But yeah, so like that's weird. But like most of the fan interaction with the show is like such out of love, and, such out of like a nerd heart. It's very easy to be open to it.
Do you have a pitch you want to make to Sean and Eric about where you'd like to go in season 3?
Yes, I want to visit Young Prince. Which I think is like, that's a TV show I'd watch. It's just like Young Prince. And it definitely has to be a cartoon episode. I don't know why or how we do it, but it's definitely Young Prince and it's a cartoon.
I mean, Eric's old show just did a Scooby-Doo episode. So.
Yeah, they did like a Scooby-Doo Supernatural crossover, right? Like, yeah, so boom, do that. Sean, write the show.
The Supernatural.
I'll talk to him later.
They had a Supernatural episode that they went from all these different TV shows. More than one. They just went
No, it's only Scooby-Doo.
Oh, there's one of those too?
Yeah, it's this week.
Oh, it's this week. That's why they got Scooby-Doo and Haley.
Yeah.
Got it.
Anything else? Like, what else?
What else can you tell?
Hold on, let me see. Let me check my notes. I got a thing of what I'm allowed to say. I take notes on like the entire season.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you feel as when you keep having to go in all these historic places where Black people are not wanted?
Yes.
It keeps happening.
Yes.
And I feel really uncomfortable for Rufus every time it happens. What do you reach a point where Rufus has to say, can we just stop going to places where I'm going to get beat up or looked at?
I always, then he'd never time travel. This is what it comes down to. I mean, and that's also like the interesting thing why I was really attracted to the part in the first place is that they're not afraid to run headfirst into it, and they're also pretty subtle and smart about how to do it. I think the reason why the show is so successful at doing this is because one, they want to talk about these things. I think, the problem with sort of time travel, and I've been a fan of everything, from Quantum Leap to Doctor Who and all of these things, is that I think white writers are afraid to interject people of color because then they have to deal with issues of race. And this show isn't afraid to do that, and it's a family show. And, I did not see the family aspect of it because in my head, I'm hearing all of the adult bad language I would be hearing in that time period, not realizing that, people are getting that without having to see me be beaten and called the N-word and see all these things. And also what's smart is that this is a group of writers it's a very inclusive writers room. And so it's not a room where you feel like a lone voice or you're afraid to be your voice, you know what I mean? It's very hard to have talks about inclusion and diversity when you're literally the only person in that room, You don't feel empowered to talk about that. I feel like as the lone person of color or the lone woman or the lone anything, you don't necessarily feel empowered to talk about these things in a way that gets taken seriously. And I think because it is such an inclusive room, and because they do listen to us, they do listen when I talk to them about certain issues, not simply about race, but in terms of character as well, I think it winds up creating a more fruitful, more in-depth, three-dimensional series, characters, and a more interesting writing overall that, the industry is starting to realize that people do want to see all types of people and do want to hear voices, and they understand that there are dangerous times and there are things that happen. And so, Black people existed before the 80s. Black people existed and had lives outside of just the civil rights movement. And we smiled. Even though there's no pictures in the 1800s of like anyone smiling, we've had in-depth. Despite all of that, we've created music and art and families, and so that was always an intention I had with the show, is to show how much breadth and depth of life there are for people of color throughout time.
Thank you.
Thank you.